Paul Ben Victor, thank you for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me.
Swimming in the bowl. I got you. All right. I like that.
I hope the temperature is just right.
I hope so too. We had fish when I was a kid. They always died. So I hope this interview isn't indicative of anything like that. My career is going to go down the tubes and sink like a guppy in your fish bowl after this. Maybe I hope that doesn't happen. If it does, I'm coming after.
No, it's only going to go up from here.
All right, good. Good.
First question that I wanted to ask you is, what got you interested in film?
Well, I went to Carnegie Mellon University in your hometown, and I went there. I mean, I could tell you in detail. I grew up in New York City, but my parents took me to Broadway shows as a kid. I saw wonderful original musicals many years ago, and even plays as a young kid. So it was in my blood to be part of the theater. I wanted to do set design. That was my big desire. I like construction, so I went to Carnegie for set design. But I've always been, theatrical as well, and had friends who were in the arts. And I grew up again. My mom was an actress, and she's a playwright, so I was around that a lot. So acting wasn't far, and I got recruited at Carnegie to play in a workshop of a play called Short Eyes. Play Juan, who was a Puerto Rican guy, and there weren't any Latinos, and I was, the closest thing. I'm not Latino, but I was the closest thing, and I ended up doing this play and got a lot of recognition for it, and boom, I became a little bit of a bumpy road there, but I became an actor and sort of dropped my tool bag and my Licos and Fresnel lights and lighting equipment and all the drafting that I was doing for 2 years, and became what they call at Carnegie a dramat. I was a dramat. I was an actor, and made that transition. You had that sort of euphoric moment when I realized I'm going to do this and not that. And that got me on my path to being an actor. And I went to New York, started auditioning, and I booked early on a couple of commercials, which today are all the rage. Every big star in the world is doing commercials. Well, I did them for 10, 15 years, some big spots. And of course, my theater and film friends were like, Paul, you're doing all those commercials. What are you doing? And now, of course, it's cool to do commercials. But I remember taking a lot of heat from certain actors, I don't want to mention any names, who, looked down on me because I was doing commercials while I was also building a career in movies and television. So anyway, that's how I got into the business. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Through my parents, through set design, through building. I built a lot of sets in high school for the plays. I directed some of the plays, and so it came through design first. And I still like to do a lot of home design in my world, in my life. That's how I keep that going, that desire and interest creatively through, some projects around the house and real estate things. So that's my entry into the business.
Very cool. I actually did set design in college, and then I transitioned to doing screenwriting, and that kind of developed the whole podcast thing as well. So very cool. The first film I wanted to ask you about is going back, good 20 years now, but it's The Rookie with Clint Eastwood and Charlie Sheen. And I wanted to ask you about what was some of your experiences working on that film.
Good question. I was working with a manager at the time, great guy, Steve Siebert, and he was helping produce that. And he got me in with Clint Eastwood, and I think I did an audition of some kind. Somehow I got that part, play, the hell was my name? Some Latino dude, which was interesting because I was able to play other characters back then of other, from other parts of the world. And today, of course, that wouldn't be cool to do, but I was able to play some Latino guys, some Russian guys. And I played this drug dealer, Little Felix, that was his name. And the one instance that was kind of fun, it was when Clint says to me, he goes, Paul, I need to grab you here. What do you want me to do here? And I say, Clint, just go for it, man. Just go for it. If you want to choke me out, just go for it. He says, well, you want me to grab your shirt, your collar? I said, no, just go for it, man. I'm sitting there with Clint Eastwood. I'm thinking, I'm not going to, let's make it real. Well, he got a hold of my throat. And if you watch the scene where I'm trying to talk, I was like choking. He's a strong guy. He's 3 times my size. I had to put me on an apple box so I could be at least up to his chin. And he's choking me out. I swear to God, I was hoarse for a week. And I'm actually trying to peel his fingers off my throat during the scene. I've watched that since once or twice, and I'm like, he had me. He wasn't messing around. But this is a guy who's done how many westerns? Countless westerns, beating the heck out of tough guys. And I was just trying to hold my own with the guy. But it was a great, great experience. I was thrilled to work with him. It was wonderful. But I remember that day getting choked out by Clint Eastwood. It was kind of cool.
Awesome. I still watch that movie whenever it's on. I'm a huge Clint Eastwood fan. I love everything that guy's done. It was definitely one of the first movies that introduced me to you. So, I was definitely following your career from a very early age because I was born in '88. So I've been watching your stuff for a long time.
A long time. That was probably 94, 93. I mean, that was a long time ago.
Right. I think it was like even before that. I think it was like more like 90 or 91 or something. It was definitely very early 90s. But it's a great film, and it still holds up. And I love Raul Julia as well, and seeing him as the villain.
So Raul Julia, I got a story for Raul. Rest in peace. I love that man. We became friendly on that set, right? And we were talking about playing tennis, and he was one of my heroes on Broadway. He big Broadway actor. I don't know if you know that. He was a huge star in New York on stage. We're coming from the Shakespeare Festival with Joe Papp. He did Three Penny Opera. He did a Lopakin and the Cherry Orchard on Broadway with Meryl Streep. I mean, years ago. And I had met him in the streets of New York when I was in college. We chummed up, and I called him, said, "Hey, Raul, let's play tennis." So he leaves me a message on my voice, and he goes, "Hello, Paul. This is Raul Julia. I can't play. I'm so sorry. I can't play tennis with you because I hurt my arm playing Macbeth in New York." So I saved that message for so I won't be able to play tennis with you. I hurt my arm playing Macbeth in New York. He couldn't just say I hurt my arm. He had to let me know he was starring on Broadway playing Macbeth, and that's how he hurt his arm in the greatest Shakespeare performance of all time. He was just so flamboyant and so dramatic. But I remember keeping that on my voicemail and playing it for friends for years, and then I miss him. He was a great guy, one of the great actors. I'm happy he became a movie star and moved past stage. But we met on that and met Charlie Sheen. He and I were friendly for a minute, but it was a terrific experience.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Very, very cool. I still say he was the best Gomez Addams. I know they have a new Addams Family movie coming out, but I still say that it's kind of like hard to top the two from the 90s with Raul Julia and Angelica Houston and Christopher Lloyd and just the whole cast that was in those movies. And I'm also a huge action movie guy, so I thought he played the villain in the Street Fighter movie brilliantly. Even though the movie gets a lot of hate, I still love it. But that's very, very cool. The next film that I wanted to talk to you about is actually one of my all-time favorite roles with you in it. That is True Romance.
Yes, indeed. True Romance. It's obviously a true, what do you call it, cult classic type movie, and it's been an honor to be a part of that. I had no idea at the time. You never know when you're doing something what it's going to be. It's going to be a hit. It's going to get forgotten. I've been in a lot of both, mostly stuff, not as many hits, but you just don't know, and this was one of them. We were shooting. It seemed really cool at the time, all these cool actors together. And, I remember, how many stories you want? I'll give you a couple. Gosh, met Tony Scott. Somebody had recommended me to him, and in the room, he just met me. I didn't really audition with anything. He goes, "Do you speak any Italian?" And I had just done some Italian in a pilot, so I threw out some Italian that I knew. He goes, "Great, we'll call you Luca. You'll be the Italian cousin." Great. I had no idea. It was starting out. I hadn't done a whole lot. I had no idea it was going to become what it was going to become. But I do remember the day we did the big scene, the famous two-man scene, Chris Walken and Dennis Hopper, and nobody knew. And, I had no idea that was going to become, it's considered one of the great two-man scenes in film, and I remember being a part of it. But my job was to not understand what they were saying. And I kind of turned my brain off and made it very cloudy in my head what they were saying. So people were going, "Oh, what was that like?" I said, when I was in there, I kind of was deliberately daydreaming, not listening, because I don't understand English. So I kind of just let myself not hear what was going on. I was kind of just in the, a wallflower, and which was fun to do. And I had those little Italian lines to say, so I was focusing on my cue, and make sure I said what I had to say properly. It was a great thing. I met Michael Rappaport on that. He and I have remained very close over the years. We've done at least 7 or 8 projects together. We were very good friends. We're in fact texting about getting some sushi next week, and he's doing some crazy stuff. So we became great friends. Who else was on? I remember hanging out at the craft service table, and this guy named Brad Pitt walks over, and he's hanging out, getting some peanuts, and I'm getting some peanuts, and everybody was really tough and cool, hanging out. It's like a tough guy movie, right? And I was like, that Brad Pitt guy that everybody's talking about. And I hadn't really seen River Runs Through It. I think was just come out. He was just on the rise, and I didn't know his work, and he didn't know me or anything. So I remember hanging out. I'm just like thinking, I'd like to say hello, but I was shy, didn't say nothing. But we must have been hanging out at the craft service table for an hour, maybe a half hour, just hanging out. And I remember like thinking, man, you could have said hello or something, because now I'm a huge fan. He's obviously become a superstar and a great actor. But there was that moment I'm hanging out there, and I was like just trying to be cool and not saying nothing to Pitt. That was another moment I remember. And then since then, of course, the big shootout, I was called back because I had to die, because I guess I killed a cop in the movie and I didn't die. So I remember Tony Scott calling me saying, we got to do a reshoot. We got to make sure we show you dying. You know how I fall in slow motion and die?
Right.
And I expire, he goes, we need to see you like expire, because the ratings commission or whatever, somebody complained and said, this guy shot a cop and killed him. We need to see him get taken down. So it was a cool little skeleton crew. We went back and shot that to make sure I got killed. That happened, and some other, a lot of exciting stuff on that movie. I remember getting hit in the face with a squib, a little blood capsule that shot in my face behind that couch when we were shooting. The feathers were going everywhere. I caught one in the face. It was a fun thing to be a part of, what can I tell you? And since then, a week doesn't go by where people just don't acknowledge that movie, and being a part of it has been a real honor and a joy, what can I say? It was a great one.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Again, that movie, also, I mean, it was a Tarantino script before anyone really knew who Tarantino was, which was pretty cool, existing in his universe. Just everything about that movie is so cool. The all-star cast, everyone having, a unique part in the film, and definitely the two-man scene and the shootout at the end. I mean, there's so many things about that movie that is so memorable and what makes it an awesome cult classic film. And I'm proud to say I own it on Blu-ray, and I watch it quite frequently, so just very, very cool. The next film I wanted to talk to you about is also up there in one of my top favorite westerns of all time, and that's Tombstone.
Yes, sir. That was, I'm going to just expound on Tombstone a little bit.
Yeah, if you could.
If you have anything specific, let me know. I was doing a play, a Lyle Kessler play. I've done several of his plays in Seattle, at the Seattle Repertory Theater back in 1990 or something, 91, I think. Pretty incredible production, directed by Dan Sullivan. He's a big Broadway director, and who was in that version? We had Martha Plimpton, I think, was in it up there, and Lisa Zane, actress. She was doing a lot more back in the day. Billy Zane's sister. She was in the play, and she was dating Kevin Jarre, who was the writer of Tombstone. And I'm playing, again, full-on Latino goatee Puerto Rican guy, speaking full-on like New Yorican with an accent and some Spanish. And proud to say I was very convincing. I was actually invited to like the Latino theater group. I mean, I had a lot of people fooled for a while doing that play. I did it in a few other regional theaters around the country. Then we went to Broadway. Actually, Michael Rappaport, I asked him, and he played the lead. It was, it was one of the things we had done. But anyway, I'm on stage, and Kevin Jarre comes up to me after the movie, after the performance, thinking I'm, full-on Latino guy, and says, we're going to work together sometime. I'm like, all right, that's cool, 2 years later, I get a call. Hey, Paul, you got an offer to play Florentino Cruz in this big Western that's being done by Kevin Jarre, who won an Oscar for Glory, that he wrote Glory, that movie.
Right.
Same writer? Yeah, you know that. brilliant writer. And so that's how I got to be a part of Tombstone. Years later, he said, "You're going to play Florentino Cruz." I show up, and of course, everybody was there. I have another story about that, it's a little bit of a darker story. I got in a little bit of a tuffle with one of the first ADs who was a drinking guy, and they got rid of him, but we had a big sort of an argument. And anyway, that's another day. I'll tell you that story. But anyway, it was such an exciting thing to be a part of. And Stephen Lang and I became good friends, and it was Michael Rooker, and of course Powers Booth, who's passed away since. Val Kilmer, who I recently did another movie with, and we talked all about the Tombstone days. God, that was fun. He had just done the Doors movie, and we did this movie, The Super, a couple of years ago, a little thriller, and we were catching up all in 20 years past about the Tombstone days. So what can I say? That was iconic, an iconic Western to be a part of. I had this little role, but I was in the midst of some of the greats. And I remember demanding on my death scene, which only ended up like in a split second in the movie somewhere. But I remember telling the director and the AD, I said, "Listen, I need a minute to prepare for this death scene." And they went on the bullhorn. "Okay, we need quiet. Paul needs some time to prepare for his minute. He needs a couple of minutes." And I start punching the dirt, and I'm kicking the dirt and eating the dirt. I'm getting all into it around all these cowboys and getting all emotional. And I said, "Oh, now I'm ready. Shot the scene, and then we go to lunch, and Kurt Russell sits down next to me, and he goes, "Boy, that was fun to watch you do that. It reminded me of the old days when he was starting out." And then the next day, or a couple of days later, they're shooting this huge scene, when Kurt Russell has to, in the middle of the rain. Remember that big scene? It's raining, and he goes down on his knees. He had lost his brothers. He's basically directing the movie at this point. He's helping set up 15 cameras, rain machines, everything. He's all right, blah, 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 blah. He stands in the middle of everything, no preparation, nothing. All right, ready to go, in action, and gives this gut-wrenching, beautiful performance. I went, man, I had my little thing in the dirt. I made everybody get quiet and stuff so I could prepare, and this guy just knocked out. And I learned from it. I said, man, you do this for 30 years or 40 years or 50 years. He started out way younger. He told me a story that was great. And you get this muscle in you that, this ability to just go places instantly because you've done it for decades. And I remember here I was, working hard to get up my emotion. It just waterworks poured out of him. And you remember that wonderful scene when he's on his knees screaming to God or whatever? He just knocked it out effortlessly. And that was quite an experience to watch, to observe, to see him and all these wonderful actors. They were terrific, all of them. John Corbett and I became good friends on that, and a bunch of guys. Yeah, a lot of good times.
Awesome. That's
very I could keep going. It was like 3 months down there in Arizona, and it was definitely a cowboy. Guys were trying not. It's hard not to. Guys were still spit and chew at night. At the bar.
Right.
And everybody stayed in character and messy and all that beards and. I had makeup. I had that funny little mustache, and they had to put scars on me, and I had a big wig. Florentino. I was happy to do that. Very, very happy. Again, in the moment, I didn't know what I was being a part of. I had no idea that I was going to be a part of something so wonderful. Wish I had a little more to do, but I was happy to be a part of it. There's Tombstone. I could keep going, stories about Tombstone, but there's a little bit for you.
Thank you.
What else you got?
Awesome. The next one I wanted to ask you about, because, again, I'm a big action movie fan, and that is Maximum Risk with Van Damme.
Yes, sir. Van Damme. That was a blast. Yeah. I remember auditioning back then and getting that movie and getting this movie. It was the John Gotti movie that Armando Sante was playing Gotti. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah. It's a great movie.
And I get hired the same day to play his brother or something, his younger brother or something. And then I get Maximum Risk the same day. And it was tough because I wanted to work with these great actors and all that. But then it was much lower. The Maximum Risk was a much bigger offer, let's say. okay. And, you know, the managers at the time said, we got to do this. Plus, I got to go to Europe for a month. We shot it in the south of France. But that was an interesting time. I had to decide what to go do, you know. And it all worked out. I mean, I had a wonderful time. Natasha Henstridge and I are still good friends. We met on that movie. But that was an exciting time. And I have to say probably the best part was being in the south of France for a month. I worked probably 10 days, 11, maybe 12 days, and spent the other 20 days going to some of the best French restaurants I've ever been to in my life. And they closed off, like, sometimes the whole center of the town, the whole, like, you know, the whole piazza, if you will, in the middle of these towns. Obviously, that's Italy, but, you know, these town squares. And these restaurants stayed open kind of just for the cast and crew. And every other day we were, you know, I'd work a few scenes and then say, go, the lunch is waiting for you. And this restaurant closed off, and they went all out. I had some of the best meals I've ever had in my life. It was great. Just me and the other guy, Frank, who we played partners together. So that was exciting. And getting in a car and being in one of the craziest chase scenes ever, not knowing what was going to happen. They were like, okay, just you're holding her hostage and keep the gun to her head and action. And then we're going 90 miles an hour down these streets that are about 8 inches wide. And it was the scariest thing in the world. No warning, no rehearsal, nothing. And off we went. I thought we were going to fall into this lake with at the end of the chase. Maybe you know that crazy car chase scene that we're in.
Right, definitely.
That was insane. You know, a lot of chasing, a lot of running around. I remember I didn't stretch and work out before like day one. And I ran. I was in a hot bath in the south of France for like a week because I couldn't walk. I didn't get ready for that. So that was a big lesson. I remember Van Damme saying, Paul, you got to stretch. If you're running like, I said, I'm tough. I'm good. Okay, I'm telling you, you better stretch. You better like stretch it out. I was in such pain for days after that first few days of running. Yeah, that was the first, remember that, first few days. All we do is run and run and run, chasing and chasing. Oh, God, I used to do imitations of the director. He was from China. That's another story. It'd probably be, I don't know. I did it with funny imitations of this guy. He would, because Jean-Claude Van Damme played twins, if you remember in that.
Right.
He would go, he went through the whole scene. The way he would direct, he would tell, his name was Ringo Lam. He was hilarious. Brilliant guy. But he would go, okay, now you go to the left. And then you go to the right. Then you pull out a gun. We have to look on your face. You look very angry on your face. Very angry. I go like this. Yeah, more angry. Okay, like this. Like that. Yeah, okay. And it was like paint by numbers directing. It was hilarious. And you look at Passport. And you see Jean-Claude. You call him Jean-Claude. And you look at Passport. You look at other Passport. Again, he played a twin, right? He goes, now you see two Jean-Claude on your face. Very confused. Let me see confused. Like this, more confused. Like this, no, more confused. Like this, yeah, now I see you're confused. I mean, we were laughing our asses off because, you know, I gave him what he wanted, but he was a blast. Ringo Lam, God, I wonder what he's up to. But, you know, he was a great action director, and I was thrilled to work with him. He had done some legendary stuff in his homeland. Anyway, yeah, the Van Damme days. It was a blast. Froze my ass off when we did Toronto the first month. I got like frostbite on my toes. It was freezing. Anyway, what else?
Very cool. The next one that I wanted to talk to you about, the next two, depending on, I'll just throw it out there so I can get the two in there, depending on how much time we have left, because I wanted to talk to you about The Irishman. But the next two movies I wanted to ask you about were Metro and The Corruptor.
Metro and The Corruptor. Metro and The Corruptor. Well, oh my God. You know, one day I'll sit down with you. I'll tell you some good Metro stories. Eddie Murphy was hilarious. Again, there's a whole routine that he did that I used to. I mean, it's funny. I don't know if it would translate right now in this interview, but he was great. He was great to work with. You know, I have to come after him with a knife. We had this knife scene in the rain, and there was this alleyway. We had to roll around this gross alleyway that smelled from piss, and they cleaned it up, and I had to go down this fire escape, and you know, we had this huge chase scene, me and Eddie Murphy. Again, brain machines, and it was a blast. It was a lot of fun, and he was terrific. And, we got in this fight scene, and here I am with a knife right next to Eddie Murphy's throat, fake knife. And he was like, you better not use a real knife. We're not using a real knife. The AD's like, well, we got a fake knife for you. All right, don't be using a real knife. Paul's going to cut me, stick me. It'll be a dead Eddie Murphy right here on your set. Don't be using no real Eddie. Look at the knife. It's a fake knife. Here it is. All right. Don't be switching out for no real knife because you don't want realism. I'll be bleeding dead on the cab. And Paul's stabbing me. I got rain in my eyes and sticky stuff in my hair from your taxi. He just had everybody in stitches. And he goes, now you want me to run across over there by those stores? And it was in the red light district in San Francisco, right? Well, Paul's going to chase me in front of those stores. You don't have that seat blocked off? No, we don't. We just want you to run past it, Eddie. Well, did you see those stores? He's calling them stores. These are strip joints, right? And he goes, is this a G-rated? What's the rating of this podcast?
Oh, you can swear. You can say whatever you want to say.
He goes, I'm going to run past these stores, and these dudes are coming out these stores, and they're in these stores, these like little jerk-off stores, right? They're coming out of these stores going, want to shake my hand, okay? And they just finished jerking off. They don't want to shake your hand. They want to shake Eddie Murphy's hand, all right? And he's going off on a routine. The entire cast is in stitches, but he's dead serious. I need you to block off that street because I'm coming out, and you don't know who's in them stores. They're girls' stores, girls, rated XXX, want to shake Eddie Murphy's hand, and they just finished jerking off, and that's what you want me to do? Please, block off. And he just had us going. He just had us going. We could barely get through the takes. The man was hilarious. I would do anything to work with him again. So that was, and there's a much longer X-rated version of that story, but he was hilarious. But that was one of my favorites. They going to want to shake Eddie Murphy's hand. They want to shake your hand. I get down that fire escape, Paul. You're going to chase me down the fire escape. I'm going to fall down that fire escape. You got nothing to worry about. When I get down to the bottom of the fire escape, hard copy's going to be waiting down there saying, what happened to Ed Murphy? Everything was like, what's going to happen? Because the press was constantly paparazzi shooting them. Who's got my back here? I don't believe anybody. I'm going to get screwed no matter what. He was just a really fun guy to be on set with. What else? Metro, then you got The Corruptor, was exciting because I read for that. I used to audition a lot more back then, but I did that. It was great. Worked with Mark Wahlberg. Yeah. What can I say? That was a terrific experience. And, God, I watched that. I was doing all kinds of silly, goofy stuff, spinning around on chairs and stabbing a knife into it, all kinds of nutty stuff. I felt like I'd redo that. I'd do that a little differently. Anyway, it was a blast. Mark Wahlberg, chatting on Fat. We had a good time.
Those little just goofy things that you did in The Corruptor, like for me, that made that movie more believable with your character. Like it just added on to who this guy like is about and who he is and what he's after and everything. And I like those are the little things to me when I see not just you but other actors do subtle stuff like that. To me at least, it makes the character more believable. Kudos for you for that. Definitely added to the scene.
Well, that's great. I mean, we, just trying to entertain, trying to, make it a little bit more enjoyable. So, yeah, I mean, thanks for saying that because I look to watch it and I go, oh, my God, what were you spinning around on a chair, and grandstanding and screaming and yelling? Take it down a notch, But it's good if it fit the tone of the movie. That's all that matters. If it worked for you, thank you. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely. The last movie I wanted to talk to you about is the big one, the Irishman. I was wondering if you could kind of elaborate on who your character is in the film and any or all cool experiences working with just the stellar reunion cast of all the big players that came up with Scorsese back to do what could be looked at as like a going away like crime film biopic epic. And yeah, I was wondering what you had to say about that.
Well, you worded it well. It's definitely a a crime film epic, you know, of massive proportions. We're all thrilled about the incredible reviews it's getting, and the response across the board is really exciting. I haven't seen it. The film festival in New York, I think it comes to the theaters November 1st, so I'm looking forward to taking a look at it. But experiencing it, watching it, you know, the full experience on the big screen. You know, I guess it's only in the theaters for a month, right? Is that what they're doing?
Yeah, something like that. I think I read.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a dream come true to get on the set. You're kind of pinching yourself. I had just a year earlier done Vinyl on HBO with Scorsese, so I at least knew him. You know, I did actually do a couple of small scenes in a movie called Grudge Match with
Right.
with De Niro. So I had met him. Of course, you know, keeps quiet to himself, and so, you know, I'd met him, worked with him, was in a scene with him and Stallone and Kevin Hart. It was an interesting day, and so I had some experience. It wasn't going to be like, oh my God, I'm seeing everybody for the first time, which would have been a shocker, you know. And I've talked to a few actors who've worked with these guys. It's not easy to just step on set and there you are, you know. And you got so anyway. So Scorsese, I get on set and he's going, Paul, check this out. This is Hoffa's. This is exactly. It's a replica of his office. That's a replica of his desk, and we did this. And he's all really excited about the set. He's just such a huge personality, filled with the thrill of being on set, the thrill of making movies. It's intoxicating. It's like, you know, it's what he, not only obviously his talent and his history and his genius, but his enthusiasm. You get on set, you feel like, you know, you were all a kid in a candy store, and the guy's been doing it how many decades, and he still seemed like it was almost, isn't this exciting? We get to do this. And it was just his energy on set was unlike any other director I'd ever worked with. And of course, there's a certain respect when he gets on set, kind of like the king is in the castle, and people don't talk in between shots. Usually on other sets, you go, and cut, and there's like an uproar of talking and, you know, laughing, whatever. You call cut on his sets, and it's like a library. Everybody stays cool. You know what I mean? And it's a very sacred space, I would say. He creates that world for the actor. The utmost respect. I felt so taken care of, so welcomed, so, you know, anything you need. And here I am just playing one scene, two scenes, whatever it is. So it was just incredible to be in that company. And here I am talking to Al Pacino. It was sort of an out-of-body experience. You know, these guys are heroes or idols for many years. I mean, Pacino's kind of the one that made me really want to act. I saw him in American Buffalo. David Mamet played back in the 70s. I don't know, junior high school, wherever I was. And I remember just going home and trying to imitate him for years. And you know, here I am working with him. What can I tell you? De Niro's there, Pacino, and Scorsese, all like, and then of course I'm sitting there next to Ray Romano, and he's pinching me, going, "Can you believe this?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're fucking Ray Romano." He's like, "No, are you kidding? I'm nervous as hell, sweating." And so the two of us were sitting there just giggling and having a good time. And of course, you know, we had some lunch together. We sat down. Everybody was telling little stories. I was talking to Pacino about his performance as Richard III in that movie Looking for Richard. I don't know if you've seen that, sort of a documentary about
yeah, definitely.
And we talked about that, and you know, he was thrilled that I had seen that, because Shakespeare is his real love, and we kind of bonded for a minute. And I just couldn't believe it. I still pinch myself. And again, hey, I've done a lot of movies, and what can I say? Some of these are great. What I'm saying is that kind of small roles. A lot of them are just small roles, and that's where I've been. I've had some bigger ones, but some of these smaller ones, they're still very meaningful. And this was clearly one of the greats. And it's coming out. Thrilled to be just absolutely beside myself to be a part of it. And just talking to my friend J.C. McKenzie, who has a nice role, you know, also a smaller role. And we were having drinks in New York last week during the film festival, but the tickets were only given out to the main cast. And we were in a little bar in New York last week during the screening, and like we're toasting to each other, celebrating, going, we're in the biggest movie of like the decade, not invited to anything, you know. So we were laughing, but you know, the place was packed. You couldn't get a seat, you know. So I think we could have got into the afternoon thing, but I actually had this other premiere that was in New York for a movie called All Rise that's coming out, and with Jennifer Hudson, Jeffrey Wright, and Jennifer Ely, and some A$AP Rocky and J.D. Washington. I'm very excited about that. I have a really juicy role as a prosecutor in that. Bunch of stuff coming out, so I'm excited about that. Well, I'll just tell you, I've got.
Well, actually, my last two closer questions are actually, what are some of your favorite films, and then your what upcoming projects do you have to promote?
Well, yeah, I mean, just saying what I've got. This movie, All Rise, it's a wonderful movie. Director Anthony Mandler directed, and really looking forward to it. It's supposed to come out nationwide, wide release next month. I'm still waiting to hear confirmation on that. But there's also a TV show called All Rise, not to be confused with that. But that I'm very excited about. I play a real tough, nasty prosecutor, and pretty major role, and I'm looking forward to that. But The Irishman, a movie called The Banker with Sam Jackson and Anthony Mackie coming out. A movie called Feast of the Seven Fishes, which just the trailer just got released. It's a small indie, little Christmas movie about an Italian family that does this traditional fish feast every Christmas. That's exciting with Joey Pantoliano and Madison. What's her last? Madison Eisner, I think. Yeah. Lovely, young, beautiful actress. My friend Ray Abruzzo is in that as well. So we had a blast. That's coming out. I did an episode of Will and Grace. That's coming out in January. And there's a couple of other smaller ones that are coming out as well. But those are the main ones. And I'm thrilled. It's going to be a big month in November. I hope to have take my parents to 3 or 4 movie theaters where I at least appear in the thing, at least in one scene, maybe more. So
Awesome.
That's coming up. Yeah.
Awesome.
There's other projects coming down the road. I'm going to be directing a play that I co-wrote with my mom years ago called The Good Steno, a new sort of streaming network called American Theater Channel. So we're going to be filming plays, and that's something I'm going to be doing. Produced by dear friend Dave Rodriguez, who's a big TV director, film director. That's what's happening. That's what's coming out. I'm plugging away here, but it's going to be an exciting. I mean, what the heck, you know. Irishman alone is exciting to be a part of, and then these few other things around it. Should be a good Christmas. And then you asked me what's my favorite movie.
What are some of your favorite films?
I always say my favorite one is the next one, you know, because you get that call. Hey, Paul, you're going to go to Atlanta. You're going to, you're going here. You're going there. You're going to Texas. You're going to New Orleans. You're going to Canada. You're going to Toronto. You're going to Vancouver. Where are you going? And that's always a thrill. You know, I've been doing this, I don't know, almost 40 years. And to get that call saying, here's where you're going next. So I kind of rub my hands together going, what's it going to be? Who's looking down on me from the stars for me to bring that next guy to life? And so that's always the biggest thrill for me is that next phone call. Where are you going next? Getting that gig and getting that phone call, that offer is always the biggest thrill for me. What's the next one, you know? And I don't know. There's so many. I've had such a wonderful experience doing some things you've never heard of. And Tombstone is up there, I have to say. We had such a blast being cowboys for, I think, 3 months down there. That was right up there. Playing Moe in the Three Stooges with Michael Chiklis and Evan Handler and those guys. That was definitely one of the best experiences. We were in Australia for 2 months. That was, a dream job, ABC biopic. Have you seen that one?
I have actually. I wanted. It was on the list. I had actually a bunch on the list that we did not have enough time to get to this time around. But that's perfectly fine because it leaves another interview for us to do and talk about all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean we could do another one because there's Moe and the Three Stooges. There's The Wire, of course.
Right. The Wire. I also did want to talk to you about Vinyl because I was a big fan of that show, and seeing you in there was awesome. Another film going back that I actually saw with my grandma. She took me to see this when I was a little kid, which was Bushwhacked. I wanted to talk about that one. there's a lot that we. I also the Super. I did want to talk to you about the Super. So there's definitely a lot we can get to next time around.
Well, I got to tell you, I don't do a lot of this stuff, but it's exciting. And you start naming these things, I think, because every day I wake up, I feel like sometimes I just started out, I'm like still feeling young and it's a new day. I'm just warming up. And then I run into guys like you that go, oh man, I grew up watching you. I'm like, Jesus, what am I, 900 years old? I have been doing it a while. It hits me, when you talk about those movies. I feel everything just happened in the last 5 or 10 years, but it's been 35 years, and it's been a fun run. And the Super was so interesting for me, but we could talk about that another time. The Super, Mo, Three Stooges, The Wire, Entourage, and some Dave Rodriguez movies. An early one called Push, where I got to play this very flamboyant, gay Latino drug dealer. That was one of my favorite roles ever. I doubt if you've seen that, but if you want to rent that,
I have actually. That's another. There's
you've seen that.
I could probably do like 3 or 4 45-minute hour-long interviews with you
All right. Well, maybe we'll do
your.
it. Maybe we'll do it. See what kind of response you get on this one, and pull me up. Let me know how it goes, and maybe we could do another one. Now wait a minute. What was it? There's somebody. Oh wait, I'm doing another one. Somebody called me. They're doing some sort of reunion podcast on body parts.
Yeah, that's another movie I wanted to talk to you about because I'm a big Eric Red fan and just horror fan in general. So that's another movie I definitely wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. Of course, there's The Invisible Man. Did you see any of that TV show?
Yeah.
All right, well, dude, you've seen it all, so feel free to call me back anytime. We could go over some of those because those are all. I mean, if people are interested, I'd be happy to talk about them. Those are great experiences. In fact, I'm going to call Vinny Ventresca today, who played the Invisible Man. We're still very dear friends, but Eric Red was terrific. He cast me in Body Parts, and then he cast me because I believe he wrote The Last Outlaw, that Mickey Rourke, Steve Buscemi, and I went in reading for an audition for that, and I got to play. That was my first cowboy role, and then Kevin Jari offered me Tombstone. I was like, man. And then, oh gosh, like a dream. So it was a dream job. I remember telling my grandfather, hey, Grandpa, he's passed away since. Guess what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go play a cowboy. And he says, this is an old school Depression, from the Depression, immigrant from, Russia. He says, what's the difference what they give you? As long as the check clears and they spell your name right. Isn't it? Am I right? Said, but Grandpa, I'm going to be a cowboy. What's the difference? You don't care, right? As long as the check clears in the bank. That's all that matters. So that's my cowboy story.
Awesome.
But call back. Let me know how this one goes.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for taking the time to swim in the bowl with me.
Hey, it was fun swimming.
Thank you so much, Paul. Great talking with you.